Hello everyone! I'm so excited to be back for another Tiny But Mighty stream. If you're new here, Tiny But Mighty is all about highlighting the sometimes small updates that make a big impact. From quality of life improvements, to updates, to brand new features, we're excited to cover a lot today. So with that, let's get started. If we haven't had the chance to meet yet, my name is Emily and I run community and agency marketing here at Webflow. And today, I'm joined by none other than Alan Linewan, CTO at Webflow.
Hey, Emily. Thank you very much. I'm Alan, and I couldn't be more excited to be here for this Tiny But Mighty live stream. We've launched so much since I had the chance to speak with you all at Webflow Conf, and we thought it was a good moment to come here and showcase what we worked on. So let's get going. A quick programming note, Emily and I wanted to be together, and our schedules didn't really permit it on April 24th. So the first part of this live stream is recorded. We're actually together, but we'll join live at the end, answer your questions, and then give you a sneak peek into what's coming at Webflow. All right, let's kick off with some new superpowers. The first one is custom element. This was discovered by our community. Very sneaky. You guys found it before we announced it. Now, with the custom element, you can use any of the over 200 HTML elements natively in your Webflow build. Sliders, SVGs, and so much more available directly in the designer. You can create nest elements with any tag or attributes for advanced customization. So there's no more need to copy HTML elements using custom code you might find out on the wild internet. Custom elements within a component can bind to property overrides, kind of a geeky thing, such as a fill attribute or something else we don't do natively in the designer. And the cool part is that code is still shown visually. It's a pretty amazing superpower to start off with.
Next up, we have Figma design systems in Webflow. So for many of you, Figma and Webflow go hand in hand. And our new Figma app makes it even easier to sync design variables and components from Figma directly to Webflow, using Figma as a source of truth for scalable styling of real-time updates to a Webflow site. This makes it even easier to use the app and the plugin to keep your files in sync with a single click. And more importantly, we've built with design checks in mind, so users can easily review all changes, inspect, do a quick visual diff, and evaluate how the Figma designs look in Webflow before even having to iterate or publish. Over to you, Alan.
One click. All right, next is custom CSS properties. I just said we gave you the full power of HTML, and then we thought, why not do the same with CSS? With custom properties, you can add any CSS property to any style, whether or not that CSS property is natively supported in the Webflow style panel or not. So if you ever want to use calc for anything including padding or margins, clamp or color mix, or values like text decoration color and clip path, you can do it. Nearly all of CSS is now available for all of your styling needs. We've seen you start to use this, and it's been pretty cool what you've all done with this new functionality. All right, localization was the #1 requested feature in Webflow's history. And since we launched back in December, we've added a bunch of improvements based upon what you've all been telling us. So Emily, get us started with some localization stuff.
Absolutely. First up in this section, we have bulk field translations for CMS items. We've heard your feedback. You love the magic that translation native in the designer has, but you'd love to see it extend to the content in the CMS. So now you can. With this update, you can translate all fields in any given CMS item, again, in a single click.
Single click. Another piece of feedback we've heard is that you wanted to show flag dropdowns for the language picker. So we decided to do that and make that possible. So now you can add a flag for each locale to your site and show it in the dropdown. I like country flags. I think you all like country flags. We've seen lots of you already start to use this additional piece of UX, and we're really glad you like it.
Next up in this section, I want to talk about branching. So for large teams, you need a safe place to make changes to pages independent of the publishing process. And when we launched branching last year, we heard a ton of feedback and have iterated a lot to make that even more seamless. We took inspiration from how our development processes work and updated a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about today. Starting off with Alan.
All right, #6, start a page as a branch. A common workflow for our enterprise partners was to create a blank page, set it as no index to avoid the search engine bots, and then create a branch to remove any risk in publishing unfinished changes. That wasn't such a great user experience, so we decided to make that a lot simpler with the ability to create a page as a branch. Super simple, start a new page in the designer as a branch, and away you go.
Speaking of updates, we want to update components in branches. Components touch many aspects of your site, so they're potentially tricky to change and can affect a lot of things on the site. By enabling components to be updated within the safety of a branch, it drastically reduces the risk of inadvertently publishing any unapproved updates to your site, and makes it simpler to make targeted changes to your components and general control of your site.
All right, localized page branching, number 8. You love localization, you love branching, so we thought we'd mix the two up and bring them together. You can create branches in any secondary locale in your site where you can safely make changes and review them before publishing. So if you're adding a second or third or fourth language in a branch, that's now super simple and easy to do.
Number 9, we have branch merge summary. So with this broader adoption of branching, now you can do even more in branches. And we heard that feedback that you wanted more additional insight and understanding what's changing before you merge. So now you'll see a log of those changes to review before you merge that branch. This one's pretty cool because you can see that summary, review the proposed changes on a page branch, see you suggesting them, and even drill into each change for site activity log detail on whatever element will be affected by the merge of that branch. It's always good to know the diff of what is about to change when you merge a branch, and now you can.
So branch merge summary in a live stream that summarizes things.
It's pretty meta.
It is meta. All right, next we're going to talk about rich text. Maybe you noticed, but maybe you didn't, but rich text has been a big particular focus for us recently to make it easier to draft, review, and publish your written content in Webflow.
First up, we have the dedicated code block element. This is perfect when you want to display some code on a page, in a blog post, or technical documentation. It's really simple to get up and running, and you can even pick the language, and it'll format it nicely for you.
I like some code. Matter of fact, we're going to talk about number 11, and that's defining text as code. So continuing on displaying code without writing code, you can now style text as code. This is perfect if you have a specific style for displaying code on your site. You can now set that style by default for all your code on the site. It works exactly like a span, but it uses the native code HTML tag. So no more writing code to display code. Pretty cool.
Nice. Next one is Markdown support in rich text elements. So if you're like me, you might already be used to using tools like Notion, Google Docs, Confluence, or Slack. Or other tech editors that support Markdown. As we bring more power to the editing experience in Webflow, one thing we heard from the community is that we want that same functionality in our rich text editor. So now we support common Markdown syntax, so you can write content directly in the CMS or designer. That means easier content writing when you need it. And for those of you who like to bring your content in from elsewhere, your Markdown is now supported when you copy and paste. So no more formatting things perfectly in another tool and then redoing that formatting in Webflow.
Great. Lucky number 13, indent lists in rich texts. I think if there's one feature that deserves the tiny but mighty title, it's really this one. Before you're limited to one indentation, but now you can indent as much as you like. Indent once, indent 10 times. I really don't care. Have some fun with all of your indentation in the rich text.
Next up, this section is all about the thing that many of you probably spend most of your day in, the Webflow Designer. The Webflow Designer is where all the magic happens and is where you go to build. So naturally, because of how important the designer is to every project, we want to make sure the designer is as efficient, as pleasant to work in as possible. So in this next section, we're going to cover a few updates that do just that. Over to you, Alan.
So after the redesign, we heard from a lot of you that it was too dark. And we made the default in the designer now slightly lighter, while giving you the option to switch back to the darker version or an even lighter version. So this is all about new appearance settings. Lighter by default, darker or lighter optionally. We hope these accessibility options have been better for many of you.
Speaking of updates, we have our new and improved style panel layout UI. After speaking with thousands in our community, one thing became clear. There was an opportunity for us to make our controls even more intuitive, especially for designers. So we redesigned the layout section of the designer to do just that. And I'm sure a lot of you have already seen and played with this one. The new layout reduces the number of clicks it takes to create common layouts and introduces the layout box that makes selecting the right configuration for flex and grid a lot more intuitive, especially for those coming from design tools. So if you haven't had a chance yet, you can also check out the Layout Land game that we just released. It's a game that helps you become an absolute pro at layouts generally, but is also a really great way to familiarize yourself with this new UI. And the link for that is in the chat.
I like games. Do you like games?
Love games.
Games are fun. All right. XY offsets for shadows. Number 16. One thing we know is that you designers love using shadows in creative ways to make your design stand out. Shadows are kind of a thing. So we updated shadows to use XY offsets to make creating those amazing designs even easier. And I think it also works for glows, right?
Absolutely.
Got to glow these things up. Got to glow, you have to have shadows, all sorts of things. So go off and make some shadows.
Next, number 17, we have style panel pointer event support. Here's a small win for y'all. It can be challenging to select elements, especially when there's an image overlaid and when you have a site that has a lot of layers. So with pointer event support, you can now make your site more accessible while also making it easier to work with within the designer.
That was pretty cool. We've got more. Now for a bit of a rapid fire of some of the tiny, some mighty features that didn't quite make it into the other categories, but nonetheless, they're features we know that you've loved. So rapid fire time?
Absolutely.
Let's rapid fire.
Number 18, right-click in Navigator. It was always possible to right-click an element on the canvas, but up until recently, you couldn't do that in the Navigator. Surprise? Well, now you can. So simply right-click in the Navigator to wrap an element in a div, duplicate it, all the things you used to do on the canvas, now when right-clicking. This will give you all more ways to do the actions you already know and love, and also make it easier to order them because you're already in the nav.
Number 19, no index improvements. There are many reasons to remove a page from being indexed. You've got some unfinished changes, it's internal documentation, you've got some duplicative content. Now you can remove any page from your site's index with a simple toggle on the page settings.
Number 20, create component property groups. Components are at the heart of a scalable website. So with groups, you could take similar properties and group them together, making it easier for folks to repurpose them across your site. And who knows, maybe eventually we might be able to enable a new experience where maybe you could build a whole page with pre-approved components. Alan?
Yeah, that sounds like something for sure. We should look into that.
Duly noted.
All right.
Next.
Just drop that little hint there. Okay, 21. Class no longer reserved. Previously, you couldn't add a custom attribute named class. That name meant something. So now we've loosened the requirement on all the elements, and you can add a name of class as any custom attribute anytime you like. So go add some class.
You've always had class, Alan.
I try.
Next, 22, we have use a custom domain for staging. We've heard from enterprise customers that for security reasons and for also being able to use your literal domain, after all, most companies are pretty proud of their own custom domains. You wanted the ability to stage your Webflow website in your own domain, and now that's possible. Bring that custom domain and use it for staging your site before going live.
All right. Number 23, Site Activity Log API. You all know I love my APIs. A big part of working in enterprises is audit trails. And what changes were made to your website, by whom, when, is part of those reporting requirements for many of you. So now you can integrate your website into your audit setup with the new Site Activity Log API. Having this API gives you a programmatic way to bring all the details of the site activity log right into your audit trail, change control tools, and all those internal tools that you need.
Next, we have number 24, stable CMS IDs. This is a huge tiny but mighty update that dropped just about a month ago. Your website is at the core of your workflow, and that means it's integrated into a bunch of your tools. So when making it back up today, we no longer change the CMS IDs, so your integrations will stay in place. This makes going to a backup of a site so much safer.
Excellent. All right, 25, searching for apps in the designer. Apps are becoming increasingly important and crucial to many of your workflows. We've added over 100 apps in the marketplace since the launch last year. We heard you that it was really a pain to go to webflow.com/apps every time, so you can now search for apps directly in the apps panel or using Quick Find, Command K. So go add some apps.
Next, we have use multi-image fields in lightbox elements. And well, it's exactly what its name is. You can now have multiple images in a lightbox.
There you go.
And so look at that. There's a ton of features that we just talked about, ranging from all different sizes. We got some big ones like custom element, stable CMS IDs, and some tiny ones like no index. Which one's your favorite, Alan?
You know, I do love a good API. I love APIs a lot. Custom CSS properties, starting pages of branch, bulk field translations. Who doesn't like those single clicks? It's kind of hard to pick a favorite child. So I'm just glad we got them all shipped.
Awesome. I mean, you know, every parent probably does secretly have a favorite child. My favorite child is probably the Figma to Webflow app. A lot of the updates they're doing there, I know, are just such a big improvement for a lot of folks who are regularly either just working between teams or, like myself, spend a ton of time in Figma too. So really excited to see that. And the search for the apps. Yeah. That's a huge one. So really excited to see not only just the reactions of folks here, but also more stuff that we know are coming.
Excellent.
So for those of you joining us, I hope that you've been dropping questions in the chat because it's now time to turn to future Emily and future Alan to answer them. So with that, you ready?
I'm ready.
See you soon. Hello, everybody, and thank you to, of course, past Emily, past Alan. Very excited for all of you guys to join us for this episode of Tiny But Mighty. We are now officially here. We are live answering questions, and just want to thank everybody that has already joined, have sent in questions before, and of course, lots of familiar faces that have dropped in questions in the chat already. So we're going to try to get through as many as possible. Speaking of the first question, there's been a lot of updates even since we did this recording. And some of you may have seen, we've actually acquired a company since this recorded, and that feels like a good place to start. So first question is, Alan, can you speak to the Intellimize acquisition?
All right, Emily, got to start out with a fun one. It's been a couple weeks since we recorded what you all just saw. So yeah, we keep shipping. We keep doing some fun stuff. And the first thing is about Intellimize. So reading some of the comments about Intellimize, first thing right out the gate, no, we are not going away from our core designers. We absolutely want to keep addressing the needs of our core designers. And we want to keep adding to those core designers additional tools that they can do if you choose to use them to work with brand designers. So it's not an either or from our perspective, but a both if it's needed by the org or the agency. So here's how it kind of works in our mind. The way we see people using Webflow is you use Webflow to design and build your site. Then you use it to collaborate if you're a little bit of a larger team with your team. Think about things like commenting and branching and things like that. And then once the site is live, you want to manage and optimize that live site. And this is where Intellimize fits in. It's about building professional websites that are meant to not only look great using design products like Webflow, but ultimately helping brand designers to drive business results. So the combination of Webflow and Intellimize together is really perfect for that. So it's not one or the other, but it's both. And at our scale, at the scale of Webflow, we can do both. So Webflow is about bringing these developer superpowers to everyone, no matter whether you're a solo designer, an agency, a team inside of an enterprise. We want to build products that help everyone, and Intellimize and optimization products are an important part of that journey.
Awesome. And I'm also seeing some follow-up on that. There was a question on, is this going to be enterprise only?
Is this going to be enterprise only? Well, the way we think about building features at Webflow is we want to be able to give development superpowers to everyone. So that really means that we want to be able to have people on our most basic plans all the way up through our enterprise plans have various powers. So think about how we do localization. Localization, you have a certain small amount of power on some of our self-serve plans, and you get more power on the enterprise plans. And that's sort of the pattern you're going to see us adopting going forward. So we'll have to figure out exactly how we do all this, but we want to be able to give those development superpowers to everyone.
Awesome. I think lots of questions I'm seeing across the board around what we're shipping. So maybe just point blank asking. We already dropped one hint during the recording. Some of you guys may have picked up on it, but what can we say about the roadmap in maybe the next 3 months?
Well, if you know me at all, Emily, which I think you do, I love to ship new things and I love to continually ship. And we're always shipping here at Webflow. But some things you're going to see in the next few months is you're going to see really designer-based features like features around overflow clip, box sizing, pinning rulers to the canvas, all those sorts of things. We know people are also very much used to using our CMS. So we're going to actually ship WebP compression for all CMS assets. And another focus for us is speed. We've heard a lot of people talking about performance. So we've made great strides in making the designer load faster. We've been working on some of the sluggishness that I think some of the larger sites are seeing, things like page switch time, dragging elements, dashboard interactions, dashboard load times, and all the places we just want to continue to make Webflow super fast, super snappy, super performant for everyone. And last, you might have heard about this thing called AI. So yes, we are working on AI. I think last time we had this tiny but mighty feed, we were a little ahead of ourselves on that, but now we're much more confident, and we expect to have something in your hands in the coming months. So for web design professionals, we just want to make sure that on the AI solutions, that it takes your design style into consideration. We didn't want to do an AI product that's templated, that kind of produces the same thing over and over and over again, kind of really cookie cutter sort of things we've seen in the market. We want to make sure that we've made something really for professionals when we get to AI. So keep your eyes open for that. Coming soon.
Awesome. This next one is from Ollie on Twitter. A little bit fun one for both of us. What
I like
is
fun.
your what is your favorite sandwich filling? I'll start maybe with you, Alan.
No, you go first. I've talked the whole time.
um, I honestly don't know. All I know is that a good sandwich is one that doesn't have tomatoes on it, and I will die on that hill. But yes, Alan, you.
Okay, so I'm not saying BLT. No, my favorite sandwich is actually like a Reuben, which I think is like corned beef, Swiss cheese, sauerkraut on top run rye. I'm not saying that because I'm in New York. I've actually loved it even before I came to New York. So I'm going to go with Reuben. So I'm going to go with corned beef, sauerkraut, melted Swiss cheese, just pure yum.
Nice. The next question, oh, it looks like I can take this one. What improvements can we expect in the experts program? Cool. So some of you guys on the stream, I recognize some faces. Our partner program has been so core to a lot of the things that we've been investing in, and is so important in a lot of the decisions that we're making this year to be more powerful for freelancers, agencies, folks that are building with and on top of Webflow. So I can confidently say if you're in the partner program, you're going to be hearing about some of these updates very, very soon, if not within the next few weeks. And for those externally who are really excited about joining the program, there's going to be lots of updates on how you can get involved, things that we're making as improvements, both from benefits, our onboarding, the enablement, as well as potentially even features that will be accessible to partners as well. So stay tuned on that. Um,
Emily, you're working on
the
some of that
yeah,
stuff, right? So I
yeah,
can,
yeah, just a few things here and there, or some
excellent.
folks when I jump in and I get eager on Twitter. Sometimes I reveal things.
In your spare time, I get it.
Yeah, yeah, it's my late night wind down activity.
Perfect.
So here's a big one. I mean, we have Alan on every single time Alan is on any stream. There
I know
has to
what's
be
coming.
a
I know what's coming.
question about sauerkraut. Just kidding. E-commerce. Are there any things coming up with e-commerce? People are really excited to kind of think about what can people expect potentially in that space. Alan, can you speak to that?
Yeah, as you know, I always love to get excited about e-commerce. It's such a fun space, and there's so much going on in e-commerce all the time. Since I've been here at Webflow, it's been amazing watching apps be developed in the marketplace for our side and seeing all the things that people are doing on the Webflow platform for e-commerce. And I think it's a really cool, rich ecosystem, and I expect to see a lot more there. Intellimize actually has some features to help personalize e-commerce sites and help them convert better. So I think there's a nice tie-in there between Intellimize's features for optimization in e-commerce. And I really just can't wait to see what folks are going to do with e-commerce going forward. It's such a cool space, and there's so many things you can do. And I really, in my heart of hearts, I still like the idea of building really beautiful Webflow sites that are tying into e-commerce backends like, Shopify and Salesforce and Magento on the back end. But I think there's a lot of room there. So go do that.
Awesome. I mean, you may or may not know a few things about Shopify and Webflow, so
I know a few
always
things.
excited.
Exactly.
The next question that came up is how is Webflow balancing new feature requests versus improving existing features like nested CMS limits, IX3, CMS sliders, etc.?
CMS sliders. I haven't heard about that one ever. That's a new one. Um, he says with a bit of a chuckle. Um, we're always talking about prioritizing new features versus improving the existing ones. It's a constant balance. And we think about this all the time. Matter of fact, it's kind of like my day job every single day is to think about new features, existing features, building for scale, building for performance, building for scalability. We want to keep in mind these first principles at all times of bringing developer superpowers to everyone. And we think about that first principle and how we actually leverage that in making these types of decisions. So we're focused on shipping, we're focused on the highest possible quality. We want to ship as fast as possible. So stay tuned for more things to ship in lots of areas. Um, we're always going to ship when things are ready. And rest assured that we'll be sharing more about enhancements to existing features and new features as soon as they're ready to go. I am the one who's always pushing us to ship faster as long as it's the right quality. So we're going to get out there as fast as we can.
Awesome. I think next question, I could take this one. What is the future of Webflow Marketplace templates? So for lots of folks who are familiar with Webflow, we have a really robust ecosystem with both main and Webflow clonables as well as templates in our marketplace. I am very excited to say that we're doing a lot of investment in trying to make sure that both our template creator experience, so folks that literally are there building those templates, working with the team, and trying to provide. We are doing a lot of investments in that, a lot of improvements in how can we also provide more details on what are the things that people are looking for, searching for. And stay tuned because there's a lot more to come with both existing creators and more ways that you might be able to get involved in that program if that's something that you're interested in. And in case you haven't caught any of the other Webflow Comp keynotes that I've been in, it is one of my favorite things to cover because our ecosystem is so rich and is such a fantastic way that people are building. So I'm personally very excited about it. Um, awesome. Okay, great. So, I mean, there's lots more questions coming through, and I know that we are running up on time. So, I think quickly, I really want to say first off, thank you, Alan, for joining, both past and current Alan, um, and also to everybody in the chat for sharing your thoughts, your questions. We're going to be following up, making sure that if there is anything else that we can answer, we'll be following up with folks. So, I think beyond that, there's lots more to come. I want to make sure that you guys keep your eyes peeled because we want to continue to be listening, acting on that feedback, and shipping things like we did today. Anything that you'd like to add, Alan, before we sign off?
No, I think this is a lot of fun. I'm really looking forward to our next Tiny But Mighty stream. And I want to thank and share my gratitude for everyone in the community, everyone who's a Webflow customer, everyone who pushes us to ship faster and produce higher quality products to bring those development superpowers to everyone. Let's go. This is exciting.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And thanks to everyone who also may have been the folks that actually tagged us, shared your feedback, and made some of these tiny but mighty things happen. So thanks again. And until next time.
Bye, Emily.